We start recording. So I'm just going to start going through these. Um, so chapter 9 is all about sequences and series. Um, the definition of a sequence is it's just an ordered arrangement or basically a list of numbers. Um, so what we'll be doing a lot in this chapter is looking at a list of numbers and trying to come up with a rule or trying to kind of come up with a formula for different sequences. So some notation, we use this A of n notation. So n tells you what place you are in your sequence. So like A of 1 is uh, the first term, A of 30 would be the 30th term, A of n is the nth term. So that's what that notation means. Ava. So example 1, they just want you to find the first 5 terms of the given sequence. So basically, just find A1, A2, A3, A4, and A5. Sorry, and this is a little bit sloppy, like those numbers should be like subscripts. So small, kind of like that A of n. So the first, if you just, to get these, you're just gonna plug these numbers into your equation. So just plugging them into 5n minus 3. So if you plug in 1, you're going to get 2, because 5 times 1 minus 3. If you plug in 2, you'll get 7. If you plug in 3, 15 minus 3 is 12. If you plug in 4, 20 minus 3 is 17. Plug in 5, so on and so on, you get 22. So if they ask you to find terms in a sequence, you can just plug them in. So I'm going to go through the second example a little bit quicker, but same idea. Let's see. So they want us just to find the next 3 terms. So first, you're just trying to figure out what is it doing from one term to the next. So it's getting smaller. So it's either, for this section, it's just, we're going to be looking at arithmetic. So it's either going to be adding or subtracting something. So we'll talk about how to find it more exactly, but going down from 6 to 1, it went down 5. And then it went down 5 again. So it's going 5 smaller each time. So like the next term would be negative 14, negative 19, and then negative 24. So to find things in a sequence, just plug in numbers. Pretty common sense, not probably going to give anyone any issues, I don't think. But if you got questions, just yell at me or ask them. Arithmetic sequences is what this section will kind of focus on. Basically, like I said, it's going to be adding or subtracting something. So we call that difference between the numbers D. So an easy way to find D, a lot of times you can just look at the problem and kind of see it, but if you have trouble, you can always just take your second term minus your first term. That's an easy way to find it. Or just basically take one term on the right, subtract the one from the left, that'll give you the difference. So for example, this sequence here, our A of 1 would, our first term would be 4. And what does it do in each time? What's the difference? Or if you don't see it, I mean, I'm sure most people looking at it see that it's adding 3 every time. But if you don't see that, like I said, you could just take the second term minus the first term to get that. So if for some reason you're not seeing it, or you're just not feeling super confident, that's an easy way to check yourself. These examples on the bottom, they just want us to tell if it's an arithmetic sequence, and if so, find that common difference. So looking at example A, it goes from 1 to 4 to 7 to 10. So most of you guys are muted, so you probably don't want to answer questions, so I won't ask you. But it is, and our common difference would be 3.
3.
What about B? Does it have, is it arithmetic? Is it going up or down by the same amount each time? No.
No,
Diamonds, the baby behind you.
it's multiplication, right?
So yeah, and we'll see that's our next section. So we'll be doing that on Thursday. That's called a geometric sequence. It multiplies. So if it's not one, you don't have to find the common difference. C, is it arithmetic? Is it going up or down by the same difference?
Wait,
No.
I don't think so. Wait, that's not okay. There was a speck on my screen, and I thought it was -1 to -5.
Yeah, it
All
would be.
right, all right, all right.
So it actually is.
Yes, by 6, I think.
And one way, if you
-6.
don't, especially with the negative, sometimes it's harder, but you could take -5 minus 1. That would give you -6. But you should see each one, if you subtract 6, you get each next term. All right, so that's our first page. Oops. Okay. Okay, so on the next page, or if you're just writing along with us, they just want us to, in example 2, just find the next 3 terms. They're telling us that it's arithmetic. So, for example, really what you want to do in this section is just figure out what your common difference is, and then just kind of add or subtract what it is. So, looking at example A, what's the common difference?
5.
5. So it's going up by 5 each time. So you would just add 5. They want us to find 3 more. So you'd have 27, 32, and 37. Okay. B, they're telling us it's arithmetic. So what's our common difference?
4.
And one way you could do it, like you could always take like your second term minus your first term, but you should get that it's 4. Well, positive 4, it is going up. So it would be 7, 11, and 15. What's our common difference here? Is it going, well, it's getting smaller, so what's it going down by?
15, -15.
So then that would be negative. If you subtract 15, you get -33, -48, -63. So that's kind of how you can find terms in a sequence. I mean, I know this is pretty basic. You might have done stuff like this even in middle school or earlier. But what we're going to work on is, what if you're asked to find like the 11th term in an arithmetic sequence? So you could list out the numbers. It's annoying. No one wants to do this. It's called recursive if you just keep writing it out. That's basically what we have been doing. So I'll see if I can write this neatly. But basically, if you want to find this 11th number, you could list these out. So they give us the first 3. Our common difference, if you look, it's going up by, what is it going up by? 7? Yeah, 7. Okay, I don't know. I was just having a brain fart. So you could keep listing out more and more numbers. Just keep adding 7. I'll bring it down here. So 55, 62, 69. Where's Christian when we need them? And 76. That, and if you count, I was keeping track, that's the 11th term. So that's one way you could do it. It's kind of annoying because you're going to see some questions, like I just assigned one delta math section for this, but you're going to see some questions that's going to be like, find the 90th term in this sequence, which you're not going to want to write out 90 numbers. No one wants to do that. I mean, you could. So we're going to use this arithmetic sequence formula. So basically, if you want to find an nth term, you're going to use the first term plus your n minus 1 times that common difference. So let's just look at something. So the same problem. So when you're doing these problems, the first thing I usually do, you don't have to do it like I do, I suppose, but I list my information that I need for that formula. So my A1 is just my first term. So in this problem, it's 6. My n is just what term I'm trying to find. So that would be 11. And then your D is your common difference, which we already said it's going up by 7s. So then you plug it into that formula. I'm just going to rewrite the formula this first time. Maybe. There it goes. So we would have A of 11, because that's what we're trying to find, equals our first term, 6, plus n minus 1. So 11 minus 1, or that'll really be 10, times our D is 7. So we just got to kind of clean this up a little bit. So this would be 6 plus 10 times 7 is 70. So you would see, still get 76. Oh, that's kind of sloppy, but just using that formula. You want to try it on your own. You will be on your delta math. So let's look at another example. So they want you to find the 46th term of this arithmetic sequence. So you could list out all 46 numbers, but one, no one wants to do that, and it's just going to take a long time for what it is. So just list out your info. So your first term is 3. Your n is what you want to find, so that's the 46th term. And then your d, what's the common difference in this example?
2.
2. So you use that formula from above. So you would take your a of 46, that's what we want to find, equals our first term plus n minus 1 times our difference. I mean, if you think about what this formula is really doing, it's pretty intuitive. It's basically figuring out how many differences you're going to add or subtract. So to go from the first term to the last term, there's going to really be 45 differences added or subtracted. So that's really all this formula is doing. I mean, it's not really like anything revolutionary by any means, but if you think about like the formula instead of just doing it as it's just given to you, I mean, you see it makes sense. But if you work this out, you'd have 3 plus 45 times 2. So that would just be, if you work that out, it's 93. And you can just plug it all in your calculator, or you can work it out mentally. It's usually not too bad. Let's look at another one. So you got plenty of examples. All right, so like I said, I'll use the later one. List out your info. So your first term's 5, your n is what you want to find, so the 110th term, your d is your difference. So, and if you're having trouble finding that, just take your first terms, take the -9 minus 5, you'd get -14, or just kind of do the mental math until you get it, or if you see it, some people will be really good.
Mr. Swope.
Yeah.
Christian said that it's not letting him into the thing.
I didn't see he added. I added him now. He should be.
Okay.
Hope was he waiting there a while? I'm sorry if he was.
No, I don't think so.
So I wasn't really looking at my screen too much. But using this formula, it'd be a of 110 equals your first term. So I'm running out of space. 110 minus 1 times your common difference. So that is here. I'm gonna rewrite this.
Hey, come on, you look all crazy sitting there, high in the damn kite, smiling at nothing.
Wow. I'm on.
Must be nice.
So,
Your thing's down there.
thank you.
Glad your family gives you crap too.
No, they're not talking to me.
Oh, they weren't talking to you. I thought they were talking to you. I was like, wow, that's harsh.
No, they're talking to my brother.
Got you. So if you work this out, it'd be 5 plus 109 times -14. So if you plug this in your calculator, it's -441, or if you work it out mentally, if you're a galaxy brain like Christian. Hey, Christian, you missed it. We got 69. Very nice.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're saying.
What the heck is going on here?
On account of, yeah, you're right, baby.
Hope they're not talking to me.
All right.
All right. So the next page, if you're following along with this, they're just asking you to basically come up with a formula. So instead of actually finding a specific term,
Papa, turn it on.
so example 4, just list basically your A1, your first term is 2, your N, what's the N in this problem? What's it increasing or decreasing by?
3.
3. So then you're plugging it into that formula. So you're just going to keep the A of N and then set it equal to our A1, which we know is 2, plus, oh, that's not N. Sorry, this was supposed to be a D, common difference.
Cats are like children, you know?
So the N1 times our difference is 3.
They don't think they're allowed to be in.
So, and I'm sorry, this here, that's A of N.
This sleeping the whole morning.
Wait, what the heck?
What?
Right.
Wait, wait. What is it? What is the formula for?
I don't even know what I just put
If
in.
you wanted to figure out, like for example, the problems you were just doing before, if you wanted to figure out like what the 50th term, you would just plug it in for n into this formula.
Oh, so you do like
What the 1,000th
50
term in this list would be, you just plug it into this formula.
so like 50 minus 1 times 3 plus 2.
Yep, that would give you like what the 50th number in this list would be.
Okay.
Yeah, that's, I know you just kind of came in. That's what we were doing on like the last example 3, was basically just finding those, like
Oh,
the formula to actually find a specific term.
all right.
But I am recording this, so I will upload it if you want to skip. I don't know if anyone's going to watch this, but if you do, awesome. I guess maybe, I don't know. Maybe this will be embarrassing. But
How would it be embarrassing?
no,
Can you give us extra credit for coming to your epic Zoom meeting?
I don't know. Do you need extra credit, Christian?
No, but yeah.
So list your A1 is your first term is 10. Your D is your common difference. So what's this one going up or down by?
4.
So it's going, is it going up or down?
Yes, I mean down.
Down, so it'd be -4.
Yeah.
So when you write your formula, it'd be A of n equals your first term plus n minus 1.
It's always n minus 1.
Yeah, that's just the formula. If you look on the, I think it's the second page of the notes. I don't know if you printed them or if you're looking at it. And then times your D, which is -4, which I'm running out of space. So times -4 at the end there. Okay.
So very cool.
And honestly, this last part, you won't, I probably won't really ask you to do it, but I'm going to show you it anyways. But your delta, if you look in delta math, I assigned one section for 9.2. I'll assign more for the next one, but a lot of the sections in delta math talked about arithmetic and geometric, so I didn't want to assign stuff that, I mean, you probably would have been fine, but I didn't want to like screw anyone over, trick anyone. But I'll be honest, example 5 and example 6 that we're going to do probably won't be that important, but maybe it's worth seeing. So example 5, they're basically talking about finding a missing term. So one thing it talks about, which variable do you need to know? So looking at like example A, like we know A1, we know different terms. We're trying to find those two middle terms. So really what we need to figure out is our D. And the problem is it's hard to figure out the D because there's like 2 gaps. There's different ways you could think about it. One way is you could try and think about what's the difference between them going from 80 to 125, and you could kind of cut it in half. Let me think, is that easier than how the notes actually tell you how to do it? Let me think. So that would be 44. No, that wouldn't really work.
Nope. Would it be 45 divided by 3?
Well, I'm thinking there's got to be an easier. I'm going to do it like the standard way, but I bet there's an easier way to do this. So if you come up with a better way, let me know.
I think the 45 divided by 3, because it's really the third term after 80.
Oh, because you have 3 differences? Yeah, that's exactly right. Let's see if we can generalize.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I don't really think this section's that important. If not, I can show you the proper way. They like write out the whole formula. They plug in like their A of 1 and they plug in one of their A of n. I think it's just more work than it has to be. I'm going to do it Christian's way. We'll just kind of go on the fly. So one way you could do this is figure out your difference between your first and your last term. So that's where we got this 45. And if you think about it, going from 80 to here to here to finally your 125, there's going to be 3 jumps between them, if that makes sense. And they have to be by the same if it's arithmetic. So it's either going up by 10 each time or it's going down by 10 each time or whatever the difference is. But our common difference would be 15. So we would just go up by 15. So this would be 95 and this would be 110. And then you would see it holds true. It goes up to 125. Ava looks confused. Or does that make sense? I know my handwriting probably doesn't help.
It's fine. It makes sense.
So if you can't read someone, just ask. Let's see if we can apply that idea to this one. So take your last term that you know, subtract the first term for it, or sorry, from it. So if you subtract 78 minus 146, I don't want to screw this up, that would be 22 plus 46, that's 68, so negative 68. Think about how many jumps you're going to make. Well, you'd have 1 jump, 2 jumps, 3 jumps, 4 jumps. So we're going to cut it into 4 equal pieces. So if you cut 68 into 4 equal pieces, that'd be 15 plus 2, it's 17. So negative 17 though. So that's what we're going to go down by. So I don't trust, I already worked this out luckily. So if you subtract 17, you get 129. You would get 112. And you would get 95. One thing that's this is kind of what example 6 is all about, this arithmetic mean. If you have just one missing blank, an easy way to do it is basically just find the middle number between them. It's kind of like a median, because that's what's going to be exactly between them if you're adding or subtracting someone. So an easy way, if you just have one spot missing, is just to take the first number plus the last number. So that would be 88. And then you can just cut it in half to find the middle term. Kind of like in geometry when you found like a midpoint, like x1 plus x2 over 2. So it'd be 44. I mean, you could do the same thing we did before. You could have taken the first number minus the last number and it would have just given you the difference. So 50, and there would have been 2 jumps. So you could approach it the same, but if you have just one gap, another way you could do it is just find the midpoint between them. And that's what this last section is. This arithmetic mean, the number between x and y is x plus y over 2. So basically for all of these, this is actually the same problem down here, A and C. You would just add them together, divide by 2.
Ah, what the heck?
So same idea for B, just they give you, and the gap doesn't have to be the first number and like the third number, like see how it's the 5th term and the 7th term. If you want to find the 6th term or the number between 2 terms, just add them up, divide by 2. So like if you work this out, I know I'm just doing it quick, but if you plug this in your calculator, just cut it in half, it's 37. I'm just trying to not make this like an hour long. So if anyone does want to look at the video, it's not like extremely long. So then the last example, it's the same idea that you want to find the 10th term. So between the 9th and 11th, you would just add these up, cut it in half. So if you work this out, it would be, I didn't work this one out for some reason. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong spot. I'm looking at the wrong spot. It's 115. And same idea for D. Add these 2 numbers up, divide by 2, the number in, but let me just stop the recording so it's not 60 hours.